afternoon, which means it's time for LOLz. We don't have Davis Maddock here to rile you guys all up about Elon, but we have plenty of stuff going on. More poker drama. It is best ball season. Brian thinks we're all sickos. It is what it is. Let's do it. Does he think? I think he thinks this. He thinks this is a go. Vegas Dave thinks this is a go.
Hot naked girls doing yoga.
What?
Why don't you just win like a man?
Random.org. Type in 1 for yes, 2 for no, and let the DFS gods pick for you.
And I'm absolutely begging you not to dupe us. Please don't dupe us. Brian Cooper, aka Bric75. How are we doing today?
Fantastic. Finally, like a nice day out over here. I don't know how it's been around you, but
really, we had like a false start where I was like, oh, it's going to be spring, and then it's raining again today. So still haven't gotten into the summer vibes, but it's pretty good around you.
We had like one nice day, and then it just poured for like 2 weeks straight.
Yeah. Are you gonna stay at your lake house for most of the summer?
Yeah, same as I've been doing.
Yeah,
probably.
There you go. Man, we need to talk. I would love to. I feel like my summer schedule's already getting crazy, but I'd love to come out to Chicago for a little weekend. I feel like that would be fun.
Yeah, definitely. You're invited. We need to schedule something out with like maybe Alex or some of the other.
Yeah.
I just had dinner with RikkiDee last week. Actually.
Oh yeah, you mentioned Chicago. You were doing that. How was that?
It was fun. Yeah, he's Canadian, and he moved to Chicago years ago to work with Taylor KB and those guys to start Draft Day, one of the original DFS sites.
Yeah,
and so he knew the area, and his favorite pizza joint was my favorite pizza joint too, just by chance. So we met there.
Wow, can we leak the name of this joint, or will it ruin the best kept secret in Chicago?
It's we barely got in. We're totally smooth brain, didn't get reservations and stuff, and it's Pequod's. It's on Clybourne and Webster.
There you go. Do you have a promo code?
Promo code Bric75. No.
Yeah, I mean, Brian, you turning into a pizza influencer, Bric Oven, Bric75. I mean, it's all there.
I watched some of Portnoy's, but he loves that New York style, and around here we don't have any of that. Like, I mean, of course there is a bunch of New York styles, but it's mainly pub and deep dish. And the place we went to, they're known for their pan though. So
okay, yeah. I mean, I'll enjoy really good deep dish. It's not my favorite. I prefer the pan, I think.
Yeah, I prefer pub style, just regular thin crust. But this pan is so good. Anyone would like it. I think it's great.
So what's the update on RikkiDee? We need to get him back on the show. It's been what? Was that like the summer last year that he was on?
It's been a while. I'm sure he'll come on. Yeah, no, he's just playing. He's back playing baseball because he doesn't do NBA anymore.
Yeah.
So you see his name on the leaderboards. He's an interesting guy because he's pretty loud. Like it was kind of loud in there, but like it's funny. He probably doesn't even realize this was happening, but like he was like these fucking libs, man. Like where do they and like and I'm like you have to realize like everyone in the north side of Chicago is a lib, right? Like it's just you and me. That's it. And like our waitress is there, and I'm like, I think she's getting uncomfortable. And he's just totally oblivious. He's like, their economics are so shitty. Like, how do they not put together this? It was fun.
Did you guys at least avoid any big Bitcoin arguments with fellow people at the bar and restaurant?
Yeah, no, because we were at our own section, luckily. So no problems.
There you go. Yeah, people, speaking of libs, lots of polarized reactions to last week's show. We're still getting comments on the YouTube video from last week with Davis. I mean, completely polarizing, like people being like, I love Davis. Just someone said it was Davis's Mona Lisa. Other people incredibly pissed off at Davis, calling him a feckless lib, all over the map. So that's the Davis Maddock experience, elicits those strong reactions in one direction or the other.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think the crossover audience should give like an interesting response there, because like when I talk with them, honestly, like our stuff is usually a lot crazier than what we talked about last week. Like I feel for like normies, like they'd think like what the hell are they talking about? But like but with his audience, they tune in for him, I'm assuming, or like if he has a guest that that people specifically like. But like everyone curates their audience to some extent, right? And so like doing it over on your channel with our show, you could see some interesting responses were like bound to happen. I haven't checked those out though. I should go on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, there's I can pull maybe I'll pull some of these up right now.
Yeah, pull them up.
There are some funny ones in there. I mean, yeah, we did a longer show, obviously with Davis than we normally do. Let's see here. Oh, there's one for you. You could see Bric being an Elon guy from 100 million miles away. Let me go. Where am I? Okay. Let me see here. Rodney thought it was a 10 out of 10. Oh, this was the one that came in overnight. How could that Gollum-looking dude Davis, bad takes Maddox, say nobody likes Elon, laugh my ass off? And then right underneath it, Davis Maddox, Mona Lisa.
Mona Lisa.
Just like this screenshot right here is the Davis Maddox experience in an absolute.
Follow up with a BTC Bitcoin solves this.
Yeah, Kyle Daly. Davis's take that Elon is an idiot, stupid person and a loser might just be the most unsophisticated take of his I've ever heard, unless this was a sophisticated plan to get people riled up. You've been got, Kyle. You've been got.
That's what I think. This is what got RikkiDee started too. He's like, fucking Davis, I listened to your guys' podcast. He's like, he's such an emotional lib. Something like that. Like you can't even talk to him. He's too emotional.
Oh my goodness. Yes, but very fun. I think we should I mean, you and Davis have very good take casts as well, but I enjoyed kind of moderating that conversation. I thought we got to some interesting spots.
We'll have to sprinkle those in.
For sure. Let's see. Bullock, thank you. Yes. Commenting on my best ball video from earlier today. Posted that on my other channel. If you guys haven't heard about it, I started a different channel for non-live streams. So doing some more scripted, pre-produced content there, and did the first one about kind of structural strategies, looking at win rates and data from last year and trying to see how we can apply those to Best Ball Mania 3. Even though I know we're kind of in a battle right now with parts of DFS Twitter over Best Ball Bros taking over the timeline in early May.
What's your game plan with releasing? I just out of curiosity, like, are you trying to do like one a week, one a month? Is there no rhyme or reason to it, or what?
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, I would love to have more of a cadence, but just the way, like, I think it would probably blow people's mind how long that video took. I first started researching it with Michael Dubner. So we're in a Google Doc. He's posting data and charts. I'm trying to write a script around it, doing revisions, finally get the research and the script done. Then I record it. Then I'm working with an editor. He spends lots of time on it, sending cuts back and forth to me giving revisions, and then it finally gets done. So, I mean, Dubner and I had been working on that for a couple weeks, and then the editors had it the past week. So hopefully it gets a little more streamlined. I have a couple scripts in the can for other videos I'm working on, but yeah, it's no rhyme or reason. I'm not going to pin myself down to a schedule because that'll stress me out. And when the summer starts, I probably won't be able to do as many, but just trying to get in a groove. And, it's a lot more work than just firing up the live stream like we do here, but it's rewarding. And I think, there's an evergreen nature and a chance for, like, the truth is, and we've kind of talked about this before, the Google algorithm is not putting LOLz in my other live streams, like, in front of a lot of people. Like, they'll put it on the screen when we're live, and then it's kind of like dead to them. And so you kind of have to play the game a little bit, and doing the pre-produced content is kind of what's working right now on YouTube.
Yeah, it makes total sense to me. Like if they do it just like that, then you're just gonna get people who know who you are, watch your live show, and then that's it. And then it's off air. It's like tough to tough to grow. I just thought maybe there was some algorithm trick you knew that it's like, no, you got to release one every 2 weeks, and then it pumps you up or something like.
Well, the thing is, I mean, are you familiar with the biggest dude? He was in that poker game the other day, Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, obviously he's doing these like very ambitious conceptual videos, but you can look at his like posting schedule. Like he's basically making films, 3 weeks ago, 1 month ago, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, 6, but like when you try to do really high quality, ambitious stuff, it's just almost necessarily you have to, pace yourself. It's hard to crank those out at high volume.
John, you know who John Tron is?
No.
His is similar, but I think even more infrequent.
Okay.
And he gets whatever 10, 15 million views each show.
Okay. Yeah, and that's it because, the goal with I would say a lot of our conversations that we have on LOLz are, fairly evergreen. I guess we're talking about relevant topics, but it's like, I don't know, is the conversation that we had about Elon last week. It's not like, that's moved on in the way like DFS content. If you're talking about the slate's best plays, like that's truly dead on the vine.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just trying to find that, I would hope that my video I released today, that someone could watch that at any point throughout the summer, before they draft, up until like the start of the season, and it would still be pretty relevant and timely for them.
Yeah, they're probably a couple of years. And then even then someone will find it and be like, hey, is there an update to this? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those type of videos. I also, a lot of podcast guys I see on YouTube do, or Twitch, maybe even, they break up their show. They'll do 2 hours, 3 hour show and then break it up into clips and then put that on a clip channel. And maybe like people find the show through there. There's also like, you'll find someone on YouTube and their podcast gets like 1,000 views or something, but they have like 200,000 pod downloads, right? Like they're almost strictly audio people too. So like,
yeah,
I mean, we get a decent amount of pod downloads, but that whole game is, I've been thinking about it a little bit. Like I told you, I listened to Mr. Beast on Rogan, and he
I still gotta listen to that. Yeah,
he gets into like the different color shades of the thumbnails, produce different outcomes, and like they go crazy. The thing I was thinking about is, I think we touched on this once before, is like credibility. Like if you have like a thumbnail or topic that you don't even talk about, right? And clickbait and stuff like that. Or if you're clearly just engagement farming all the time.
Yeah.
Like for me, like I feel like you lose a lot of credibility, but a lot of those guys have like 1.5 million followers and shit like that. So like, what do I know, I guess, if like that's your goal? But to me, it seems like there's like this thin line between credibility and like algorithm playing.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And, when you look at the most successful guys, like they generally deliver on their clickbait, and it's part of the game. Like you're trying to get people in the door, and then you're hoping to be able to cash those checks that you're writing. And it's tough, right? Because I mean, even we've gotten feedback like sometimes. So like for this one, I didn't have a very clickbaity title. I didn't kind of know what our hook would be, but even Drico, I know, has mentioned, he's like, based on how I title it and schedule it, and he sees the scheduled video come across, he's like, you get naturally more excited to watch a video when it says something like how to win your March Madness tournament. Like there's something like that immediately hooks people. Whereas if we just say, hey, Pete and Brian are just going to chop it up like we normally do, yes, people who enjoy the show are going to like that, but that's not compelling anyone to click. And I always analyze, I don't know if you have this, like the way I use my podcast feed is I subscribe to a ton of podcasts and I cherry pick. So it's almost like an inbox where I'm going through and I'm just reading the title. If the title intrigues me, I'll read the description and I'm just like swiping. Do I want to? And I analyze myself and I'm like, there are podcasts that I think I like, and they're so bad at titling that I just swipe because they don't pique my interest. And when I'm scanning through, I even realize that, like, even though I know it's good, I know it's high quality, I trust the host, if they don't have a good title on it, I move on.
I guess I do that. I don't think I subscribe to enough podcasts though. I think if I had a larger feed, I'd probably, because I really know what they're going to talk about. And it's like, I've just listened to it almost every time. So I'm probably going to listen to it again. Guests matter sometimes too. It's like, oh, you have this guy on, I'm definitely going to listen to it. And sometimes like the guest is like a deterrent for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think everyone's susceptible to clickbait. It, like, one way or another. I definitely look at the titles and might click on something more frequently.
It's crazy how our brains are wired. And then, of course, like you were saying, some of the big time guys are getting so deep in it that they're looking at color theory and, stuff for their thumbnails. And I was talking about this with Spags last week because I was listening to an interview with the founder of the Morning Brew newsletter, which is a massive newsletter they sold a few years back for $75 million. And one of the things they would do is take some of their ads or even titles and beta test them on Facebook, because Facebook's algorithm is so good, and they'd see what people would be clicking on, and they'd spend like $100 on Facebook to see which one performs better, and then send it out to their email list with millions of subscribers. And so, I mean, some of these guys at the top of the content funnel are just on another level with kind of the testing and the data they're leveraging.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh,
go ahead. I was just going to say another interesting thing is, like, he was talking about how obviously content is now in the attention economy, but like they don't even view their competitors as like other newsletters. They view their competitors as meditation apps, yoga videos. What are the other things people do in the morning or they spend their time? And it's like, that's where everyone's battling with, of like, how do you capture and hold people's attention?
Naked yoga or just regular yoga?
So let's say, is that not the perfect illustration of all of this? That's still one of our most viewed, just regular podcast episodes because I put naked yoga in the title.
Yeah, and it got like 5,000 or 6,000 views or something. Those poor guys were probably like, "Oh God, I hope these guys have hot girlfriends." I don't know where this is going, but
yeah, I mean, that's one where we actually lost trust, right? With our naked yoga audience, came over and they're like, here are two schlubby looking dudes talking about naked yoga, not hot girls naked.
We probably got like 25 seconds worth from those guys.
So Josh says, Pete, is the click more important than the hook when making content? So the hook is important, but the most important thing is watch time. So Brian and I are going to do an hour podcast here, and based on my, normal analytics, we'll probably have like a 35 to 40% watch time. Just out of necessity. Some of you guys will have other things to go do. You will close out the browser. You'll go move on to something else. You'll watch another video suggested to you. And so the higher that your watch time and your retention is for videos, the more likely the YouTube algorithm is to recommend that to other people. And it makes sense, right? If everyone's watching 90% of the video, it's probably a pretty good video. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think most live streams outside of your Joe Rogans and your big time streamers and stuff, like, they don't have huge watch time. Like, we could even be just like so good, and people still aren't going to sit at their computer and watch us for an hour straight. That's just like the reality of the situation, and why I think it's hard for live streams to grow right now on YouTube.
For like whatever algorithmic thinking, live stream versus pre-recorded, there's also different dynamics there. So like for example, the Taycast, we record and then he eventually pumps it out a couple days later, and it's just like a different vibe. And like, there's pluses and minuses to both ways, even for a regular podcast. Like, for live, you kind of like, okay, we can go to a funny comment, we can ask questions and stuff like that. And if you're just recording the two of you, you're kind of just stuck talking to each other till your predetermined time is over, or however far you were going to go. But it's also like more intimate. Like, you could kind of forget that there's a mic in front of you and you're actually having a conversation too. Not that can't happen live, obviously. That's like kind of Joe Rogan's thing back when the show was live, is like the people would always come out of there and say, I can't even believe it's like going in a time machine or some sort of chamber where you're just like totally fixed in the conversation, So like, it can work both ways, but that's something I've noticed is if I do a podcast that's recorded, is just has like a little different, slightly different vibe.
For sure. Yeah. And there's a thing. I mean, I always remember, I haven't listened to one of his podcasts in forever, but back when Mark Maron had first started and he was hitting all the top tier, comedians, he would always say, and it was true, like he got to the best stuff in the last 20 to 30 minutes. It's like there's all this foreplay dancing around at the top. Then you're finding your conversational rhythm with the guest. Then the guest finally gets more comfortable. And then you get the really natural, organic sound bites when the guest has finally completely dropped whatever kind of tension I'm being interviewed, and then is just completely forthcoming and honest. And I think to an extent, like you could even say that about our podcast with Davis last week, right? Where we had some topics we wanted to hit. And I think I was like, oh, are we going to, before we go or whatever. And you guys were like, oh, I don't have a hard out. You guys want to keep rolling. And once we went past the like, oh, let's fit everything we want to talk about into this chunk and then just started conversating, I feel like it got to probably the most interesting part of the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. And the longer we go, maybe the more that's likely to happen. I mean, like, I think I actually prefer it that way, where it's more Mark Maron. You just made me think like, God, I haven't listened to him in ages. Like back in the day, he had to be like top 5 or 10 podcasts out there, right? I don't know if he still is, but like, I can't see myself now, like sitting down and listening to him. Like, I don't know. Things were different back then. Like comedians, I guess, are a little different, but like, I can't bring myself to like listen to what a celebrity has to say about modern issues. Like I do not care at all. And Mark Maron is also kind of like one note. I don't want to shit on him, but like it's like, okay, I've listened to like 10 or 20 Mark Marons. I get it. Like I know where this is gonna go.
Well, what made the Mark Maron show really interesting to me, and let's just say like the first 100 to 150 episodes, is there was this clear kind of narrative arc and thematic through line where he felt kind of like a disrespected comedian coming up. He had lots of chips on his shoulder. He had his white whale and like trying to crack like Lorne Michaels and figure out what his deal was.
Yeah.
He had these comedians he thought weren't as successful or as good as him who were more successful. And he had this dynamic. One of his favorite phrases was like, are we good? Are we good? Like it was this clearinghouse for all these old relationships he had. And it was like he was working through them and finding like more clarity and just peace of mind about where he had ended up in his career. And I think once that dynamic had kind of run its course, then it was just like your typical interview show. And he started doing musicians and stuff. And I think it just lost its kind of luster, because that was what was fun to me, was watching him work through this in real time, where he would interview comedians I really liked that he wasn't super familiar with. I remember he had like Mulaney on, or my guy Harris Whittles, rest in peace. He'd be like, basically saying, why are you popular? Like, I don't get it, kind of thing. And he kind of like grew and evolved. It was like, okay, I can see why people would like something that's not me.
He might have jumped the shark. Now I'm thinking back after the Barack Obama interview.
Yeah.
I think that might be his jump the shark moment. I don't know.
And it's tough. Like you can't begrudge anyone from doing an interview with Barack Obama. I mean, it's a massive get for a podcast and something you build toward. Like it's hard to get a bigger guest than Barack Obama. If
Trump goes, I want to be on LOLz, would you go like, come on in, pal? Or would you be like, no? So
in this hypothetical, is Trump like going on a bunch of random shows, or is this like an exclusive?
Well, I guess I don't really have a preference. So
I guess like my thought is like, if he's just literally just filling his calendar, like they say, we need to do just the most insane PR campaign ever. And he's going on food shows, wrestling shows, like just everything. I'd be like, fuck off. But if you have the chance to have an exclusive, as much as I think he's a piece of shit, yeah, we'd probably have him on.
Okay. So Barack, would you have Barack on?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Even if he's doing all the PR and stuff?
Barack, I feel like we could have an actual interesting conversation about a bunch of societal topics, whereas Trump would just be pushing whatever, bullshit agenda he has.
Oh, come on. It'd be interesting as hell. I mean,
I didn't say it wouldn't be interesting. I think it would be very entertaining. I think I would have a lot of fun trolling him. I feel like it would be reminiscent to my interview with the fantasy football counselor. It would definitely be interesting, but I would not expect to have a remotely interesting conversation with him.
Oh my God. Of course it'd be interesting. I think it'd be fun as hell. I'd troll him too by kissing his ass. I'd be like, you're the greatest president of all time. We all realize that. Shit like that.
You're the greatest podcast host, the best host. Let's see. Who would be a guest you would love to have outside of sports?
Well, we've already said this. We want to bring some poker bros on.
Yeah.
But yeah, non-gambling. That's a good question.
Yeah, outside of sports.
I'll say this for sports, like athletes and stuff. Ugh, thumbs down. Much rather have Trump than than like fucking DJ Metcalf or something. Like,
yeah, I feel like.
Did I say his name? DK Metcalf. I don't even know his name. Fuck.
I do feel like there's people that I guess they would still be considered sports adjacent, or like you said, poker. Like guys like Haralabob would be super fun.
Oh, that would
have
be
a
awesome.
Conversation with. Mike McDonald, like poker crypto speculator, I think would be very fun to talk with. But that's still not far enough outside, our circle or orbit.
Yeah, any of those guys would be fun. Any of the interesting poker players. A lot of the guys Polk has had would be fun to talk to.
Yeah.
Ed Miller.
I think I could get Sean Deeb on. I think I still have his number in my phone. I got to know him when I did some Poker Night in America stuff. And he did like the Barstool Poker podcast recently, and because he knew a decent amount about Bryn Kenny. And he's a guy that's willing to fire off some
That's
hot
what I was
takes
gonna say. He'd be good. Yeah, he'd be a good guest he'd be like a chess is okay guy.
Maybe I'm gonna make a note of that. Message Sean Deeb. I feel like he would fit the LOLz vibe pretty well.
He does seem like perfect.
Well, let's talk about this. Rick says get Jungleman on.
Oh God, yeah.
So Brian, you tipped me off to it. He was on Doug Polk's podcast the other day talking about a variety of issues, and I mean there were some truly puzzling things he said. He often just talks in like word salad and vomit to where it doesn't even make sense. But then there were just some truly hilarious moments as well.
I deleted it. I typed out a tweet, deleted it. I'm sure everyone's done that, right? We're like, this is probably not a good idea. Cause he tweeted something today about the interview. Cause he had this fixation on, he's not about hate. Right? Like, don't hate on anybody. Don't hate on Durr. Right? It doesn't matter. Durr fucked him over in the challenge. We're probably skipping a lot of stuff that people don't know about unless they're in the poker world. But
let's do a quick TLDR. So way back when Tom Dwan and Jungleman had done this,
that'd be like 2009. I don't even know. It was a long time ago. It was before Black Friday.
Yeah.
And Durr did this challenge where he would offer anyone, probably going to get some of the details wrong, like 3-1. Minimum 500 grand, something like that, or minimum $1 million, 3-1 if they could beat him in X amount of hands heads up. And so I think a few people took him up on that challenge. He said like he wouldn't play Phil Galfond and he wouldn't play Ivy. Maybe he had some people he wouldn't play, and I can't remember who else he played, but then eventually Jungleman took him up on it. So it was Durr's 1.5 million versus Jungleman's 500K. Plus, you play poker at whatever the stakes were. And he eventually just kind of bailed. Maybe it was during Black Friday that some of the problems started to happen. They couldn't finish, but he kind of was losing and just bailed out and just never really addressed it.
And this was back when all the rumors started too about what's going on with Tom Dwan. This was back when did he get sucked into the triads, the gangs over there in Macau? Does he have all these debts to other people? Because of course, everyone thought of Tom Dwan, this high stakes guy, crushes at all levels, all different game types. Why isn't he settling his debts here? Why is he dodging this? And I mean, I listened to that interview with Jungleman, and I still don't know if I have any specific answers on what went down.
I didn't even make sense why he did the interview. If he wasn't gonna address anything, he did say that he's paid most of the 1.5.
Yeah, he said
but, so it's like to me, it sounds like it's almost over. But like he was still, but like there was penalties. Like if you don't play, you get penalized, and like I guess he didn't pay those, or he considered them part of the 1.5, or it was hard to follow, and the interview kept getting more and more. What's the word, like incoherent? I mean, I don't know if
incoherent
it was that bad, and like then I guess he made a softcore porn video at some point. He wouldn't.
Did you never see that?
I of course Googled it.
Okay. I remember that live when it happened because I remember Joe Ingram was like losing his mind at this video.
I don't remember it. Yeah, I don't remember that happening.
That was the funniest part about the whole interview. And I know we're jumping around a bunch, but Doug Polk is like grilling him on like, how did you do this softcore porn, like poker music video? And he kept justifying it and saying he was trying to make asymmetric bets with huge upside in his life. And Doug's like, you can say asymmetric upside as much as you want. I still don't know how the fuck this video happened. And then he's like, he regrets it. He's like, yeah, in some elite circles, that stuff is, not really looked upon nicely.
What else did he say? And then he wouldn't answer whether he still plays poker anymore. Yeah. Maybe that could be a topic for Pete's new channel.
Yeah.
Then he wouldn't like answer if it was playing poker anymore. And I thought the funniest part was when he was pressured him on this hate thing he was obsessing over, like, no, don't hate Durr. The hate's the big problem in the world. And so he just pushes this is like Godwin's law in action here. Eventually he pushes them all the way. Okay, well, is it okay to hate Hitler? Right. And he stumped him. Right. And so he starts mumbling over whether it's okay to hate Hitler or not. He could have easily, handled that. Like, no, of course Hitler I hate. I'm talking about cultural issue. But like, there's a million ways to handle this, and he handled it the pretty much the worst possible way. And then he's like, well, what about Stalin? So I was gonna tweet. So I was gonna tweet it. I'm like, that was a great interview. You've really changed my mind on hate, especially with the the leaders of World War II. I know, let everyone makes mistakes, right? Let bygones be bygones.
Yeah, you wisely said
something like that. And I just deleted it instantly.
I have some funny other Jungleman connections. You know my buddy Mike Zakarian, right? Does Team Hold. So a long time ago, Jungleman had a tweet, and I think this was maybe right at the start of the pandemic. And he's like, I'm looking to do some online improv classes. And my buddy Mike had been teaching some improv in New York and stuff. And so I just like jokingly tagged him in the tweet. I was like, my buddy Mike has been an improv coach for the Stars, and I think he would be perfect for you. He ends up syncing up with my buddy Mike, and Mike does, I think somewhere from like 10 to 15 various online improv one-on-one lessons with Jungleman. And they're not all my stories to tell, but there are some wild ones in there. And can you just imagine doing one-on-one improv training with Jungle? So basically what that means is, he'd coach him and talk, theory and whatever, but then he would practice scenes with him. And so he's having to play the straight man to Jungleman in these one-on-one improv lessons. It just like blew my mind thinking about that scenario.
I'd love to hear those.
The other thing about Jungle too is I followed him. I still follow him on Instagram, and you could tell like over the past couple years, he's been having kind of an identity crisis where you can tell he feels a little empty in his life, been very successful at poker, but kind of grasping for, what does this mean? What's the meaning of life? Is this really what I want my legacy to be? And he started doing these charity initiatives, but in a very Jungleman way. So he would be in London and be like, yeah, we're raising, money or, getting food for a food bank and stuff. And then he would pull up to the food bank in a Lamborghini with two models he hired to wear Santa outfits. And so it's just like this is like, I want to do good things, but I also want to do it in the most lavish, extravagant way possible, which just felt so Jungleman-y to me.
I felt like, man, I lost to this guy. Like, I feel that way a lot of times,
What was the other story? Yeah. So when I did the poker night in America, Matt Glantz was one of the producers, and I didn't they basically had like the series of like whoever won the heads up tournament, then got the other one. So I wasn't there for the first one when Jungleman played, but Matt Glantz was telling a story that they left the hotel and Matt Glantz got a call from the hotel and they're like, hey, your guy, Dan Katz, he left all of his stuff in the room. And so Matt calls up Jungleman, is like, hey man, do you want to come back? You want me to try to get you your suitcase and clothing? He's like, no, I was done with it. And so Jungleman just left his entire wardrobe or whatever that he had packed for the trip. It was just like, no, I don't need it. I want to get new clothes or whatever. So all these stories have led me to build up. I feel like I understand Jungleman at this point.
It's you think I was thinking about like, why does DFS not have a ton of these personalities? And I think it might be because DFS kind of scales older. Like, because back in the poker days, 25 was old.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all those guys were like 20, 21, shit like that. And, young people do stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And then if you're a poker player for your entire adult life, you might be a little strange. Like, it might be like survivorship bias or, poker just does crazy things to you.
Yeah.
But like DFS is like everyone's in their 30s,
Here, like, because this has been kind of a theme of the past couple of weeks, is us trying to untangle some of the differences between poker and DFS and why poker has been able to kind of build out more of these characters. This is like a random angle, but do you think there's more like large whales willing to like splash around, the businessmen or whatever in poker than there are in DFS?
I mean, if I had to guess, I would say, yeah, I would say definitely. Like, who is splashing around at the 10K 3-mans? Like, I never pay attention to those, but
yeah,
I don't know, man. It doesn't seem very it's not, I don't think there's enough action. Like, oh, I'm going to splash around and wait, what? I have to pick 10 guys.
Right. I'm just trying to think through like the ecosystem at the highest levels of poker. Like those guys would go to Macau to play in these games with these high rollers, and there were lots of marks in those games, and it would sustain. You could still have a table with like 6 pros if there were 2 really big fishes at the table. And I'm just thinking like that's like supported like a healthier ecosystem that trickles all the way down to poker and allows people to stay around more. Whereas in DFS, like, it's harder to make that an aspirational way to like ladder up to that, because it basically, you have to be a really good tournament player like you to kind of stick around. And then you're just kind of in the mix with everyone else. It's like the World Series of Poker for you every week. Whereas there's no like super good equivalent of you going to Macau to play poker or play DFS at the highest level.
Yeah. Maybe they should do like a, World Series of DFS somehow in the Caribbean or something every year. Who knows? That, what I bet though, Pete? I bet those guys are in the sports book.
Yeah.
I bet they're throwing 50K down on a game they're going to watch that night, or 100K. So maybe they would come over. You never know. They're like, 100K. You know what? If I got a showdown, a big like 10K, 10K showdown. Lineup where they just pick 6 guys from the game they're going to watch at 9:30.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
I do think this is, and we talked about this point as it pertained to poker vlogs, where you're kind of literally letting people in on your exact decision process in real time. Deadhead said DFS is a more isolating game. We don't watch people make decisions on their lineup. Live poker is more interactive. I mean, that's the thing too, right? With DFS, like, how riveting would it be? Brian, people would line up, even though you say like, your sims and stuff, it's just like the math does it, and it is what it is.
Boring. Yeah.
But if you had like an actual screen share and you were just kind of talking through as like, okay, now I did this input, now I'm running the sims, now I'm selecting which 150. Oh, I think something if you just talked through with screen share as you did it, I guarantee people would find that riveting.
Yeah, I bet you're right. And, I think the proof is in some of your other streams with best ball. Like, people are kind of watching you play poker, watching you play best ball. and it's exploded in popularity. Did you see drafters now?
Yeah.
.com? They got 250K up top, $1 million prize
And I
pool for
think
their
it's
big one.
no tournament structure, right? It's just most points in the regular season.
I
Yeah.
don't know the answer to that.
Pretty sure that's what it is.
Probably
Yeah.
should have checked. I just saw a tweet.
Yeah.
I'm like, God damn, best ball's blowing up.
Yeah, I think you're right because when I do my best ball streams, I'm talking through my logic at every decision in the way a poker vlogger would. He's like, I got this under the gun. I decided I wanted to 3-bet here. They're talking it out for people and you get to kind of put yourself. Whereas same when I'm drafting, people are looking at the board, they're yelling at who they would rather draft than me. They get, it's like a more participatory, you let people in on your thought process. It's hard with DFS to open up that window.
So I'm looking at this right now. You're right. It's 17-week no playoff.
Yeah.
So how the hell does that work?
So it's just your total points scored. So there's no like worrying about advancing. The kind of week 16 and week 17 stacks essentially don't matter because you're not trying to optimize for the highest scoring weeks in those money weeks. Like the EV, I think calculations are much different for a structure like that than Best Ball Mania 3.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It feels dupey to me.
Well, I mean, there's way too many variables with drafts, I think, to end up with duplicated lineups and just too many roster spots. Yeah.
I don't know. Because like if you're playing like baseball right now, there's early baseball slate and Birdie's got like 2 home runs. So basically when there's like a 2 or 3 home run player on a slate, like you have to have him. And that kind of happens in football all the time, doesn't it? Like Kamara got 50 points. It's like, okay, well, the teams with Kamara, that's one slot that's locked in.
Yeah, but even like Underdog posted it last year for kind of the percentage owned for the teams that advanced. And I want to even say guys like Cooper Kupp and Jonathan Taylor and Mark Andrews, the big like league winners, they were still owned no more than like 30 to 35% for advancing into the playoffs. So there's definitely a cohort of players that end up on the best teams and the winning teams. I see what you're saying. Like, at the top, like 5 or 6, like you're going to have a lot of overlap, but that happens in the underdog contest too.
Was there any dupes in that final that you were in?
No, I really think with an 18 round draft and the amount of different variables and possible combinations, I think it's hard to have dupes in a meaningful way.
Okay.
Yeah. But to your point too, like one of the reasons I was so excited about the team Beimfor and I had in the finals last year is we didn't have a single one of those top 5 advance rate players. All the Mark Andrews, Deebo Samuel, Cooper Kupp, Jonathan Taylor, none of them, which put us in a really nice spot when so much of the field had those guys.
Right.
And then on the flip side, we were like one of the few teams that had Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny goes for 30 points. Like having a unique team in that final money week where it's like a GPP and it's like 40% of the field's rostering Cooper Kupp, like he becomes a pretty obvious fade in that structure at that point. Obviously you can't decide to fade it, but if you can build teams that have a unique path that don't share those players, I think it's a huge advantage.
I think in this, just thinking through a strategy here for the 10 seconds that I've realized this was no playoffs, you definitely contrarian makes a lot more sense on that site. Because if you get this like 40% drafted guy, you just lost 40% of the lineups. Where in a playoff format, that's not necessarily true because they could then make it, and then that guy comes back or whatever from injury and then helps you in your playoffs or who knows.
Yeah, and I know in the FFPC finals, Leone was the only team, and it's tight end premium over there. He was the only team that didn't have Mark Andrews, I want to say, and I think he was the only team that had George Kittle, and he was so stoked about that because it's like the tight end is such a big swinger in that scoring system, and if the entire contest, the finalists, it all get a dud from Mark Andrews, and you get the 40 burger from George Kittle, I mean, it's like game over for the rest of the field. So like that stuff, because there's a natural selection bias as you move around, like all the teams with the best players all naturally advance. So if you're able to squeak in there with a super unique team, it's a massive advantage.
But back to the content thing, I do think that is probably the best ball live draft streams is kind of the closest to the Twitch poker, the Twitch poker streams that can get pretty popular. Just not many people are doing them. You could probably make them. We've talked about some ideas about making those a little more interesting too. I mean, hand build. I don't know. We've done hand building at the end of shows.
But people like that. I mean, when we do it on the Swolecast, we do have that, like we build golf lineups, like that is, because you're at least talking through it. I think the hard thing is like, it's harder to imagine that being the optimal way to make a lineup. Whereas like, if you're talking through a poker hand, you could talk through what actually is the optimal decision with the factors.
What are I honestly, I've never watched one, but are they playing poker and just like six tabling and just letting it rip and then not saying much and concentrating?
For the vlogs or for the streams?
For the streams. Or are they actually playing like one hand or two hands and going like, okay, I think this, and this, I'm going to balance, here's my frequency, whatever.
The chat could correct me. I'm not a huge poker streamer watcher, but as I understand it, the most popular streamers are in tournaments, just playing one hand.
Okay. I got you. That's more exciting too, because big prize,
big money
pool.
Up that top. Yeah. That's how I understand. And then with the vlogs, you're obviously able to edit it. And so they can curate the most interesting hands. Man, I know I put a ton of work into that best ball video, but just thinking of how much time goes into making a poker vlog and how you need to be present in the moment, playing really good poker while filming, while taking notes, while remembering stack sizes, other cards that your opponents had. Make sure you're time stamping those enough so you can go back through the footage and find that, and then remember your decision-making process. Like, it sounds absolutely exhausting and grueling to put those together.
Like the old poker training videos. It's funny. Like now they just give it away for free.
Yeah.
And talk about their strategy live on Twitch.
Yeah.
You remember the tough fish videos? The guy who used to tilt.
Yeah.
Insane.
That's the Empire Maker tough fish video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he died. R.I.P. But
really?
he sounded kind of older anyways in those videos. And that was a long time ago, man. That was like 2004 or something.
Yeah.
I was thinking back to Corona poker days where there was that video of Siege getting stacked by just J-Mac.
Yeah, that was.
Oh my god, that was classic content. Maybe just poker's just more entertaining for this type of medium.
Maybe that could be a take cast LOLz hang, is the three of us just playing poker and tilting our faces off.
Yeah. I'd play. I haven't played in fucking ages.
I know. It was so funny how poker, it was like the beginning of the pandemic, is everyone was making their own sourdough bread and playing in home games, poker home games with their friends. I was like, what are we going to do? Oh, play poker, make bread.
It's too bad the fucking goddamn government didn't legalize that. It would have been perfect timing to make poker legal again.
God, that would have been a full-on blast-off scenario if they had done that. Can you imagine the tournament sizes in like April and May of that year? Holy cow.
Yeah, like we know you got nothing to do and how nervous everyone is here. Just
that was
in our Discord that Maine is making. There's last states with some like positive sports betting. Yours is one.
Yeah,
I think it's us. Another state I can't remember in Maine, and they're giving it to the tribes, and it's like, how is that not like totally political? Like it's either like not an immoral thing that's going to hurt society so badly and it should be illegal, or like it's so dangerous we need to regulate it harshly.
Was this the one here?
Was it California? I thought I saw one with Maine. Maybe this is a different one, or maybe I just misread it.
Yeah, California Online Sports Betting Initiative, backed by DraftKings, FanDuel, and BetMGM, has qualified for the November ballot. A separate measure backed by the state's tribes would legalize sports betting, but only inside their casinos. If both get a majority of yes votes, sports betting would be legal at tribal casinos and online through commercial operator/tribal partnerships.
Yeah. I think there was 2. So I think there was
Okay.
3 of them. There was Massachusetts, California, and Maine. And so what I asked, and I didn't look in, is that ballot measure binding? Because this is a political trick that we did when I was there too. Is you put a popular get out the vote issue on the ballot, but it's not binding, and people are too dumb to realize that. So like in Illinois, it would be, oh, let's put should minimum wage be raised to $15, right? So you're going to get a whole bunch of Democrats coming out to vote yes, but it's a non-binding resolution. So it's really just like a poll of the people.
Yeah.
And so then they could say like, oh, well, it's just a poll of the people, but we're going to take this into account next election. But really it's just to get more asses in the booth. And it's whoever has power over the legislature at that time. And usually here it's Democrats. They get control of what goes on the ballot too.
Okay.
So, and like a whole bunch of other stuff, like the shapes of the districts, like the gerrymandering selection is done by the party in power and stuff like that. And so, if it's not binding, they're just fucking with you.
Okay. Yeah, and Chris saying Connecticut has the same thing. And I remember when that story broke, and it was basically this monopoly, right? Too, where they only had, it was like 3 licenses, and DraftKings had one, and FanDuel had one, and then you had to pony millions of dollars to get the 3rd license, which was going to price out basically every other small time operator. There's no chance Underdog or FFPC is going to be able to, justify spending whatever it was, $2 million just to operate annually in Connecticut.
It's so like the Indian casino thing, and like this is what it was, they called it in the article. I don't know if you're supposed to call it that, but whatever. Like it just seems so blatant. Like we're gonna give it to this group. It's like what if it was like we're gonna give online poker to Walmart? And it's like, wait, what? You can't do that. Is it legal or not? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
and they just don't give up. They could care less.
And it's such a I mean, there's a lot of things that shine a light on what a joke it is, but like even seeing it just for the Underdog stuff pop up, where it's like all of a sudden now Michigan people can't draft best ball teams. Like it's just so arbitrary and random with the stuff. And then in some states you can do pick 'em, but you can't do best ball, and vice versa elsewhere. And it's like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Right. And honestly, I should I'm being like hyperbolic or whatever the word is. Like it's like it's not random. It's complete. They know exactly what's going on, and so like I could guess in Michigan, there's casino interest and interest within the state house that want to fuck with best ball. That they think best ball is taking some of the money away from their product. They've been donating to these guys. They have relationships with them, and so they pressure them, and then they call the gaming board, who those people are assigned by the politicians through the legislature, and they start blocking shit. And then if you don't play ball and get in there, which is tough because not only do you need money, you have to figure out what the hell's going on there. And the interests that are there don't want you there. So like the fact that we have any of this stuff is pretty kind of amazing. But like, anyways, the point is, it's just like you want to go like, what is going on here? But it's clear almost for sure. I mean, I don't live in Michigan. I don't work at that state house, but I would bet a lot of money that's what's going on.
Yeah. And Matthew, I'm very excited about it as well to be legalized in Massachusetts. But again, to your point, Brian, about like peeling back the reasoning behind it, my guess is if DraftKings wasn't based here, this wouldn't have gotten through even now. And it was dragged out for a long time.
Right.
But DraftKings has a major presence in the state. They have big pockets, for lobbying and stuff. And my guess is, in knowing just kind of what kind of state Massachusetts generally leans on this stuff, that we wouldn't have had it for a while if it wasn't for DraftKings kind of nudging them. Yeah.
And it could be, and who's the problem there? Like Foxwoods or somebody. I'm assuming there's some
Foxwoods
big.
Is Connecticut. I mean, there's the in Springfield.
That doesn't stop.
Yeah.
That does not stop.
You're right.
Remember I told you that story about Comcast, right?
Right.
And so like they'll donate from all over to every legislator.
Before the Wynn opened up in Everett, which is, a stone's throw from downtown. I mean, Boston was essentially like 90 minutes from 3 different casinos, one out in Springfield, Foxwoods, Mohegan. There was a couple in Providence. And so there was, it was basically free for the picking. And then we got the Wynn. I still haven't been over there yet. I kind of want to check it out.
One change that could happen sometimes is people retiring. So like if you have someone in like a position of power, so either the Senate president or the speaker or someone on their direct team, because they usually have like a leadership team of like 3 or 4 people on both sides. And or it depends on your state's constitution. If you have like a constitutional office, like a state's attorney or something like that, that gets changed, that can have an effect, because it's like, hey, you weren't donating to me for the last 30 years. You were donating to my predecessor, right? So like, I'm okay. I have a good relationship with DraftKings. I think they should be legal because that, bullshit. So like sometimes you can get lucky on that if people retire or get voted out and they had a lot of influence, especially if they're old school, then they've probably had relationships with those 3 casinos for 20, 30 years.
Yeah. Sag's asking a question. Could the U.S. federal government roll out legalized gambling across the U.S. on a federal level?
Yeah. It seems like they're rolling back federal legislation lately.
It's like we're going in the wrong direction on that.
But I would say the odds of that are, is this Spag's little brother? Spag's 21? I would say that's super unlikely and unconstitutional, but I'm not a constitutional scholar. I don't think they have the right to do that, but super, super unlikely that they would say poker's legal in all the states.
Because
there's like no chance of that happening.
I mean, how does that work too? Because obviously it's beneficial on the state level, similar to weed, like the amount of tax revenue that you can garner from gambling from weed. How would it benefit the federal government on a federal level? I mean, would they be able to take a cut of that as well?
I mean, yeah, if they put that in legislation,
yeah,
that's one thing they do have the power to do, is the power of the purse. And so they could, I mean, you're not supposed to levy a tax on the states like that though. So like that was the whole Obamacare ruling where that's how unemployment insurance works too, actually. So like they can't charge, they can't force states to have unemployment insurance programs. So each state has their own unemployment insurance program. They can't force us to do that. But what the law says, what the Unemployment Insurance Act says, is if we don't do it, so let's say Illinois doesn't want to have an unemployment insurance program, there's like a 5 to 7, I can't remember what the number is, let's just say like 5% tax on all Illinois businesses that goes to the Fed as a penalty.
Yeah.
So they use it to essentially strong arm you into having these programs.
Yeah. Let's see. What does Scott say here? The Caliente Sportsbook, not regulated in any state and run by the Mexican drug cartel, advanced with the Illinois Gaming Board, while Fubo, regulated in 2 other states, got denied. Are you familiar, boots on the ground, with this?
No. Caliente Sportsbook.
Never heard of that.
Advanced with the Illinois Gaming Board. Are you sure about that?
This sounds wild. I've been watching Ozarks, and this sounds like the next plot point here.
Yeah, the game, like these boards are usually determined by, so like the standard thing is something like you get like 5 board member seats, 2 appointed by the Senate president, 2 appointed by the Speaker of the House, and 1 appointed by either a constitutional office that's relevant or some other like random associated sector of the government. So like it would be like someone appointed by the state's attorney's office would be like the 5th person. And they're not exactly experts in their field for who they're appointed by. They generally, a lot of times they're not paid or paid well at all. And like the only vetting process is you have to go down to Springfield, and they might have avoided that during COVID, but it was a big problem with us. We'd have to get these people driven down to Springfield, 3 hours away from Chicago, and you testify in front of a small committee hearing, and then they either approve you or say, no, you're not. They always approve it, though. It's like no big deal. And then, so like, can they get a Mexican drug cartel? I seriously doubt. Like, there's not as much crime going on. I never saw anything that people think there is. It's just like a complete mismanagement of money, because it's not the bureaucrats' money, so they don't give a shit, and there's no consequences. So like it looks a lot worse than it is. Like on a moral level or whatever. I seriously doubt that. But Fubo, isn't that like a TV streaming service? Do they also have a sports book?
Yeah, I thought I have no idea. Fubo is a clothing. This is Fubo. Also, I Googled Caliente Sportsbook. They have awful SEO. Like not a single website. This is I mean, they're getting aggregated on these other online sports books, and then they have the Caliente Last Chance Sportsbook in Tijuana, and this is apparently the sports book.
Well, to be fair, it's not their number one moneymaker,
Yeah.
I'm assuming drugs are.
You would think.
Hey, as long as they pay out.
That's all that matters at the end of the day. It is a pretty good name for
that. Is a good name. Yeah, that's true.
It's basically the Run Pure of sportsbook names.
Oh my God, that's a partnership made in heaven.
Run Pure, Caliente, Big
Run
T
Pure,
on the mechanical
Caliente
bull,
Sportsbook,
doing tequila shots down there. I mean, that's so on brand for them.
That this has to happen. We should contact the Illinois Gaming Board and thank them.
Yes, Run Pure, Caliente Sports, handshake emoji. Oh my goodness. Any updates on the Best Ball app here?
Yeah, there are some small ones. I got Prize Picks up on there, but they're still working. It's still very beta, but like Prize Picks, Pick'em, you can like overlay stuff on there. And what's the other one? Super Draft too. Okay. Super Draft has a Pick'em now, and I'm trying to get them to fix like some issues Pete you brought up, the like sizing issues, and like there's some like a big white block that populates in the bottom of the screen for some reason. So they're gonna fix that. I guess there was a holiday in India this week, so they're not gonna be doing it this week. But yeah, there you go. But hopefully it'll be updated before football gets totally into.
Yeah, well, once we get it, it'll be good, because we're gonna get the schedule release. I believe that's on May 12th, and then we can do a LOLz draft here and show people the kind of information that you'll be able to load into the app and have kind of displayed and overlaid to your desktop when you're doing drafts, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm gonna try to get like ETRs automated on there, so like all you have to do is just log in with your username and password, and you don't have to even do anything if you don't want.
That'll be because that was the one thing of downloading the ranks, uploading it, syncing it for every draft. So if you can get that streamlined, we'll really be cooking.
I would like to talk to Sahil with these guests really quick. With the I want to talk. I like talking to people who want to have like a conversation, like a human being. Like some people, it's more of an ESPN interview or something like that, and that's just annoying. Like someone said, like Gus Hansen. Like Gus Hansen's kind of like he's cool. Maybe he would want to have a conversation, but maybe he would just come on, and just be like, I don't know, like this is a boring PR interview or something like that. And like, so anyone who would want to do like that, even if they're popular, I wouldn't even want to talk to them.
Yeah, it's a fair thing. There's a huge difference between having someone on and interviewing them and having them on and having a conversation. And I feel like one of the reasons we've had a pretty good success rate with our quote unquote interviews, I guess our guests, is because a lot of them listen to the show. They know the vibe of the show. They sometimes reach out to us about coming on, like RikkiDee, who's a perfect example. We had just like a fun, like, I didn't feel like I was interviewing RikkiDee when he was on. So yeah, there's definitely a distinction there. And, you know, it's hard for people that don't know the vibe too and aren't familiar. Like it's generally going, you got to make them feel comfortable. You got to ask them questions. And unless they're really forthcoming, it's harder to get to really interesting spots.
Yeah. It's just boring. You know, speaking of don't call him a scumbag, the interesting thing with Durr, now I'm like buttoning all these up really quick before we end here, is it didn't tarnish his reputation really at all, because he got on that Mr. Beast stream.
Yeah.
And you would think it's like, it's not robbing, but like essentially delaying or almost screwing someone over for $1.5 million would be a crime. I'm assuming in some jurisdictions.
I think, man, people have such short memories. You can see it play out. Like the most recent example in my head was this big time NFT influencer Beanie. And he kind of got outed and doxxed for kind of a long history of, I guess, something I would call like soft scams, you know, not like necessarily breaking the law stuff, but, you know, Ponzi-esque type stuff, hopping around, leaving people holding the bag, whatever, you know, was outed as doing some pretty bad stuff. And, you know, he laid low for a couple months and came back. And then a lot of people were like, oh, he's back to, you know, being here, and he makes lots of people money because projects he starts tweeting about do well. And so people tail him, blah, blah, blah. I think kind of with Durr as well, like people have the idealized version of him in their head from, you know, high stakes poker, really exciting player, fun action type player that, and that they're willing to just cut him a lot of slack and be like, well, Jungleman won't really spell out how Tom is stiffing him, so we'll just give him the benefit of the doubt.
I think that's why Doug was kind of pushing the issue. Although he didn't say this explicitly, he probably was like, this guy should not be getting this biggest platform, I guess, you know, show about poker that's happened in the last decade. He shouldn't be getting this, and it's kind of your fault, Jungleman, because you have this obsession with not hating. Like, if he was called out by enough people, then someone else would take that spot who wasn't stiffing people.
I'm so torn about like the Phil Hellmuth thing from being involved. From obviously it led to a lot of conversation. You know, we were talking about, could a DFS thing outside of Jade and Tanner ever transcend in the mainstream? I mean, like the Hellmuth thing transcended into the mainstream. They were talking about on it. What was it? Pardon the Interruption had it as a line item. On the other hand, you know, I think it was Polk had this comment too. Like if you're new to poker and you coming through because of some of the influencers who are on that stream, are you like, is everyone this big of a dick? Is this how everyone acts? Like, And so it's like, yes, it did a lot of good getting attention, but is it actually a net positive for poker long-term and growing the game?
Well, I would say poker needs those guys more than they need poker, for sure, right? Like those popular streamers, Ninja and Mr. Beast, blah blah blah. So like angle shooting them, right, and like shit like that, and then negotiating equity, and like people like, what the fuck? Like I would think for poker, you just be as cool as possible to those guys, right, and not make a scene like that. Like I kind of agree with Doug's take, where it's like I would just give them the pot or whatever whatever it was, or split it with them or something. Like, oh, sorry, you know, we do this sometimes.
Well, right, because if I was in that game and let's say I was a poker pro, I would be thinking of myself as like, I am the ambassador for poker right now. I need to have fun. I need to put on a show.
Right.
I need to make these guys feel comfortable. I need to give action, like just fucking have fun with it. And there's clearly people who could fit that bill. Like, I don't necessarily want to see Daniel Negreanu in that game, but how about Antonio Esfandiari, like a guy that can be fun and can like mix it up a little bit too. Like you need just someone who could handle that spot a little bit better, I think.
Yeah. I wonder if those guys asked for those specific players. If the streamers ask, we want Helmuth, we want Durr.
I mean, poker producers and people who book these games, they're not stupid, right? They know Phil is going to act how Phil is going to act. Like when you ask Phil to come, you're hoping for a blow up from Phil, but then it's kind of like wind it back. And it's like, do you really want him berating Ninja on T? Is that
it's
like
weird.
ultimately good?
Him berating Durr would be great. Like everyone would laugh their asses off at that. Yeah. But like going after the 22-year-old Mr. Beast, like what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they were prepped. Like, I'm sure their handlers and everyone was like, hey, you're probably going to do something that pisses Phil off at some point. Don't take it personally.
Right. And I mean, even though they're young, like they probably know who Phil Hellmuth is. You'd figure if they like poker enough, they're confident enough to go play it at a casino, then they probably know all about Phil.
Yeah. Well, poker's having a nice little run here. As far as, if they can get us to talk about it on LOLz, it means they're making some noise.
Yeah, they're doing a good job. I would, like I say in every show, like I wish DFS had more interesting people doing stupid shit.
This is the other part that pissed me off. I mentioned this on Club Top Shot last night when we briefly talked about this. It's like he's sitting Phil Hellmuth in what you would consider a massive EV spot, playing against basically even sub-recreational players. And how are you not sitting there with the max and taking advantage of what I assume is really loose play, loose aggressive play, or loose passive play by these streamers? Like, he's sitting there with a min stack, just knitting it up. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Oh my! I actually didn't watch. I just watched the highlights of the 3 or 4 big things that happened. That is so weak. So weak. How could he call himself the greatest of all time? And you're not. And you don't have the confidence in yourself to play a full stack against a table of YouTubers.
And I think it speaks to, like, I mean, the one thing that I think you can give Phil Hellmuth is he's a very good tournament player and specifically knows how to nurse a short stack in tournaments. But like, that's fine for the tournament and you're trying to, min cash and all that shit. But like, we're on a live stream cash game. Let's splash around and have fun. Not to mention you're perfectly poised to take advantage of this. Isn't that like, when you say the best player in the world, I want someone who can be a chameleon and acclimate to the game they're at, right? Like read the room, take advantage of that dynamic, not just shell up and play my game because this is what I always do.
Though, but also he won't take that much money off of him. A, he's not that good, and B, he's short stacked. What are they going to get? 10 B, what's the short stack? 10 BBs, 20 BBs?
Yeah, it was, I think the net was like the poker pros were down collectively over 1 million and the streamers were up collectively well over 1 million. Like they dusted them. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. I hope they do that more. And like that's why like DFS, I know we're not set up for that. And like we didn't even talk about this, but like we could have talked about this Ceramac collusion thing again that Matic touched on last week. Like we're not like, but wouldn't that be cool if we were in a position where Awesome Ho and whoever else could sit down with some YouTubers and have some sort of contest at a bar or something where they all pick players. Streams, like, right? Like it's just like nowhere even near that level of an interest in any DFS player.
Yeah,
not even close.
I'll give Alex credit. He's doing a good job though, like putting himself.
Oh yeah, I'm not shitting on Alex. He does.
No, I know you're not shitting on him.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like,
game's great.
He does basically everything that a DFS pro could do to make himself a personality.
Right. Somebody who's fun, and also, but he's he makes money. He's good, so you have to respect his game too. So you got both sides of that because you don't want to just be a clown because then everyone will be like, oh, he's not good at DFS or DFS isn't skill based or blah blah blah.
Yeah. All right, maybe we'll work. Maybe I'll reach out to Sean Deeb and we'll get a poker guy on.
He does sing perfect.
Yeah, I'll shoot him a message. We'll be back as usual next Wednesday. Any other plugs for you, Brian?
No, I haven't done ownership yet, but if people want PGA, I will do it shortly here. I don't think I have anything else.
There you go. All right, guys, we appreciate you hanging out. Yep.
We'll have the pod up soon. We kind of like flattened out there too. So if you guys haven't subbed there, just like sub to our pod it's on everything. Even if you like watching on YouTube, we'd appreciate it.
We need to come up with a Ponzi scheme for you referring your friends, and then you get rewards, and then your friends get rewards for referring your friends to subscribe to the podcast.
Is there going to be a frog poison ritual at the end of this rainbow? Or
there is. That's actually the reward. Is Brian and I send you out little vials of frog poison for every 10 listeners you're able to convert.
A little bird blood poisoning, moonbird.
There you go. There you go. All right, guys. Appreciate you. Enjoy your week. We'll talk to you next time.